Hello and welcome. Today we're taking a trip back in time, to a neon-soaked decade of synthesizers, big hair, and even bigger sounds. That's right, we're talking about music in the 1980s, a revolutionary era that shaped modern pop, rock, hip-hop, and everything in between. Over the next 8 minutes, we'll dive into how music evolved during the 80s, why many people believe it was the best decade for music, and what cultural forces helped define its unique sound. The 1980s didn't just appear out of nowhere, it was a reaction. A colorful, electrified response to the gritty realism of the 70s. As disco began to fade out, new technologies like the synthesizer, drum machine, and MIDI sequencing transformed how music was made. Suddenly artists weren't limited to traditional instruments, they could build whole songs on machines. This gave birth to genres like new wave, synth pop, and electronic dance music. Think Depeche Mode, New Order, or The Human League, bands that created futuristic sounds that defined the early 80s. But that's just one side of the story. Rock music also evolved, from arena rock and glam metal to alternative and indie scenes. Bands like Guns N' Roses, U2 and Rem brought raw emotion and authenticity back to the stage. Meanwhile, Bruce Springsteen became a working-class hero with albums like Born in the USA, blending rock with heartland storytelling. And then came hip-hop. The 80s were the birthplace of recorded rap music. From Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five to Run DMC, hip-hop grew from block parties in the Bronx into a cultural force. It was rhythmic, it was real, and it spoke directly to the social struggles of urban youth. By the late 80s, hip-hop had found its place alongside pop and rock, and it was here to stay. So why do people still say the 80s had the best music? Well, part of it comes down to nostalgia, a powerful thing. But there's more to it than that. The 1980s gave us timeless artists like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, and Whitney Houston. These weren't just pop stars, they were icons. Michael Jackson's Thriller wasn't just the best-selling album of the decade, it's still the best-selling album of all time. Then there's the sheer diversity. The 80s had a bit of everything: funk, soul, synth, punk, metal, rap, reggae, and even country crossovers. Whatever your taste, there was something for you. Also, let's not forget the rise of MTV. Launched in 1981, MTV revolutionized how people consumed music. Suddenly, visuals became just as important as sound. Artists had to look good, dance well, and tell a story through their videos. Music became more theatrical, more stylized, and more memorable. That's why so many 80s songs still stick in our heads, because we remember not just the lyrics, but the look, the feel, the vibe. The music of the 1980s didn't develop in a vacuum. It was shaped by the culture, technology, and politics of the time. First, technology. As mentioned earlier, the synthesizer and drum machine changed the game. Home recording equipment also became more affordable, which meant DIY bands and underground artists could produce and distribute music independently. This helped birth movements like punk revival and college rock. Second, the political and social climate. The Cold War, Reaganomics, the AIDS crisis, and rising social tensions all played roles in the themes of music. You hear it in protest songs like Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, or Fight the Power by Public Enemy. On the flip side, music also provided an escape, with upbeat, feel-good tracks like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go or Footloose. It was a decade of duality, both heavy with meaning and light with fun. And finally, fashion and identity played a huge role. The 1980s celebrated individuality, androgyny, and reinvention. Artists like David Bowie and Annie Lennox blurred gender lines. Pop culture embraced flamboyance, color, and eccentricity. By the end of the 1980s, music had changed forever. It had become more visual, more electronic, and more global. The groundwork laid in the 80s would go on to shape the sound of the 90s and beyond. from boy bands to EDM to hip-hop dominance. Whether you were dancing to Madonna, headbanging to Metallica, or spinning records with Run DMC, the 80s had something magical. So next time you hear that iconic synth riff or a familiar drum machine beat, take a moment to appreciate the decade that changed the music world forever. Thanks for joining us on this musical journey. Long live the 80s. Please like the video and subscribe for more content.